everyone. My name is Tanya Cashorali. I run a data consultancy in Boston, and I mainly use R, Shiny, Tableau, a little bit of Python, but a whole bunch of other tools. I know the title is a little different than what was originally planned, but I am going to go into sports data. It's just that as I put my talk together more, I realized that there's a lot of focus on rapid prototyping. So quick question though, how many people here use R? Okay, and what about Plotly? Because some people are here to learn, I'm thinking. And then how about Shiny? Okay, so everyone should hopefully learn something, and that's always my goal. So like I said, I'm the founder of TCB Analytics. It's a full-time consultancy I started about a year ago. I started my career in bioinformatics and personalized medicine, so that last talk was awesome. I'm just proud of myself when I remember what a GWAS even is. Really cool work. And my Twitter, that's my personal, Tanya Cash 21. Feel free to get in touch at any time and ask any questions. So I want to take you back on a little journey through time. Base R, our only plotting, pretty much most of our plotting came from this, right? And it was not the prettiest, but it was very useful. And in science and academia, we're not always looking for pretty. We're looking for facts. We want to just see what the results are. And then in 2007, and I had to confirm this with Hadley, because originally I had 2005, when he started working on ggplot2, or well, ggplot and then ggplot2. ggplot2 came along, which is, as you heard earlier, the grammar of graphics and really powerful plotting library. And the first time I used it, I had no idea what I was doing, of course, but the more you get used to it, it's just incredibly, incredibly useful. And then D3 comes along in 2011, and I saw all these amazing, sexy graphics by the New York Times, and I felt like I wasted like all this time learning R for some reason. And I was so jealous. I was like, I want to do this stuff. And I kept saying, I'm going to learn D3, I'm going to learn D3. And I know some JavaScript, I can modify it, but it just never happened. And then Plotly, 2013, started to give me some hope, as well as R charts. And I think you all may know Ramnath, he's awesome. The Plotly team as well. These are people that are enabling hackers like myself to build really cool interactive graphics, only knowing a few languages. ggviz. So I only recently learned that ggviz is really the way to go in most of your Shiny apps if you're rendering large amounts of data, because ggplot2 actually recalculates the entire graph, whereas ggviz will just react to the data update, and it's much faster. So these are things I get to learn when I give talks like this, which is always awesome. JavaScript charting libraries. So I go into this, and I'm not trying to say that JavaScript is ever going away, or R and data scientists are going to be no longer need JavaScript developers, and I'll get into that later as to why we do need them. But there's all these libraries, and I got so overwhelmed, and I thought they have all these capabilities to build all this really cool stuff. And this is where I think Plotly, R charts, is really starting to evolve. And I was using base R back in 2005 or 6 was the first time I started using it, so I've seen this progression. And it's been just amazing, and I'm lucky to be a part of this community that enables us to do things like this and not have to learn every single one of these charting libraries. So this is where I say Plotly to the rescue, as well as R charts. So let's just start with an example, and I'm going to try to tab out and show some things. I think I have to exit out full screen. So this is a simple pie chart. I know we love pie charts, all of us. It's 67 lines of code in D3. And there's no interactivity here. There's no tooltip. Now you can add it if you know D3. But let's go back to this. The same thing in R is, I guess technically with the pipe, one line, a couple lines or two maybe to read in the data, but you get actually an interactive pie chart without doing anything fancy. And again, maybe if you're feeling like that's not one line of code, it's 4. So 4 versus 67. Now, we'd probably all prefer a bar chart version, which is usually a better way to display this type of data. And this is one line of code. And we get those nice hover tooltips as well. And then we have this multi-series line chart, which is useful, as we all know, for time forecasting or time series data, looking at how maybe various stocks or tickers are moving along time. And this is a D3 version that's 98 lines of code. Hold on. This is, I'm just going to go to it and show you, so you know I'm not making this up. This is quite a bit of code for a line chart. And there's no actual tooltips or hover or cool panning. And if we go back to the Plotly version, this includes reading in the data. I kind of cheated on the other ones where I didn't include that, but 4 lines. And I can do all this. I can see the data points as I hover. I can filter out Austin and New York. So that's really powerful. So I wanted to challenge myself to actually prove that the code, when you start doing real things and maybe a dashboard, this is a chart.js dashboard, and this is showing Olympic medals. So let me exit out of here. Here it is, Winter Olympics. Top 5 medal countries. Let me get rid of my text messages. You don't need to see that. Top 5 medal countries. So you've got a line chart here. You can click it and then see the total medals by country. So if I click this year, 2002, I see by country a bar chart version. Okay. Where's my mouse? So I decided to build an equivalent. First of all, it's 124 lines of JavaScript. It doesn't include HTML code that you have to write. And I know lines of code isn't always the best measure, but just bear with me. Humor me for a bit. I made the equivalent using Shiny Dashboard, Shiny, and Plotly. Sorry, this is actually ggplot, but you can do the same with Plotly. Oh, actually, no, this is the Plotly version of ggplot2. So I'll show you this. And we get the same functionality. I can click a year and get the bar graph, okay? And I could have made the charts side by side. I know they're horizontal. That isn't hard to change. We can even filter out these guys, okay? Same functionality. 58 total lines of code. I mean, everything. Reading in the data, display. I could deploy that to Shiny apps. What you see is what you get. That's half the code. So at the end of the day, I'm trying to make the point that lines of code it's less time typing, it's less time programming to get the same end result. So here's another one, but I didn't think this was fair to just look at the amount of JavaScript and the lines of code. I use R every day. I can do this stuff really quickly. R is probably the only language I feel like I can write in my sleep. So I said, I want a JavaScript developer to build something, someone that knows JavaScript, uses it daily, and then I want to compare how long it took him, how long it took me, and then how much code was involved. So let's reload this. This is another, it's hosted on Shiny Apps. This is where I get into some more sports data. So through week 7, I wanted to look at how quarterbacks were ranking up against each other. And that's always, you know, you can have the Tom Brady versus Joe Montana. It's really hard to compare. But for this league, I decided to just look at a few metrics from NFL Pro Football Reference. And some of them are completion percentage, longest pass thrown, which isn't really, you know, Drew Brees threw up a bomb and it was a prayer and someone caught it. But yards per catch, QB rating, and touchdowns per game. Touchdowns per game because not all quarterbacks play the same amount of games. Tom Brady, Deflategate, Goodell. And so I then took all those measures, and because they're orders of magnitude different, I normalized so that the heat map wouldn't look ridiculous. I just scaled the variables, and then I sorted by this this total score, and Tom Brady's at the top, which I'm not surprised about. We won't talk about his political views, but Giselle will. And then yards per catch, so he's at the top. QB rating, he's got the best one, and completion percentage. And I can actually filter by player, so if I'm interested in looking at Andrew Luck, right? So this is something that, and don't tell my clients this, but it didn't take that long. And so I said, hey, my friend that works at, it's called Brophy Analytics, I said, can you build this in JavaScript? I'm just curious, just here's the data, just build it using what you know. And he actually did leverage the Plotly library, because it's not very straightforward to do, I guess, in just straight JavaScript. So here's his version. He's really good. I'll get to that also in a bit. But it's hard to ask someone to do work for free these days, just so that you can speak at a conference and make a point. But he did it. He didn't get to scale the variables. He just didn't have the time. But he's got the filtering. He's got to clean up some of the quarterbacks. There's symbols in there. But he did it. He's got the main functionality. And so let's compare. Mine was 68 lines of R code. His was a total of about 132 lines, and it took double the dev time, and he did not scale the variables because it wasn't super obvious to him how to do that in JavaScript right away. So it was a little experiment that I wanted to try, and those are the results. And you can also deploy all of this to the web, as I've shown. And there's this quote by Nathan Yao, who we all just about worship. And I agree with him on almost everything except for this now, because he says, for interactive graphics, check out D3. For static graphics, go with R. Obviously, that's not entirely true, but if you do need more customization, you may want to go directly D3 with a skilled D3 developer, which is what I've also done, and I'll talk about that. But you can deploy this to the web in 2 lines of code for free on Shiny Apps. So here are the use cases I want to talk about with my business and my clients. The sports data is fun. I don't make money doing that yet, except for one client. But this is a hospital in Springfield, Illinois, and they wanted to look at patient risk and how they can start pricing out with insurance companies' plans. And so this was just a proof of concept. It was part of a training that we conducted on R and Shiny in Springfield. And I gave him options, actually. I gave him base R, Plotly, ggviz. And he really liked the Plotly version the best. So that was cool. And it was, again, not too difficult for me. It took me about 100 lines of code total to build this. Now, this isn't Plotly right here, but I just learned recently that you can make spider and radar charts in Plotly. And I actually worked with Kent Russell a little bit on these spider charts. This is a market research company in downtown Boston, and they had all this survey data, and they had just an idea and a mock-up using fake data on how to visualize basically a path to becoming more and more mature in terms of information security policies for various companies. And so what this does, it allows you to step through, what are the biggest discrepancies and specific questions in the survey, and you can visualize that sort of path of growth. And so this 340 lines of code, but I'm actually giving them the ability to look at 4 different data sets, and they can filter by industry, company, revenue, and so on. So for them to have just an idea and be able to deliver this in a couple days is really, to them, very exciting. Here's the one case where Plotly R charts, it's just not enough, and that's okay. This is for a biotech company based in Boston, and it's drug manufacturing QC. And what we did was we used Shiny to build a prototype to start. What they wanted to be able to do is visualize drug materials going through the genealogy and development cycle in an interactive way. So it's basically like a recipe. And then they get to the final drug product from the raw materials. And right now, they're doing it all in Excel. One guy's doing it. He's sending it to all the scientists. And we've made it so that all the scientists can now look at this data in an interactive way export it, export images, figure out if any raw materials should be tagged as potentially harmful in the production process, which saves a ton of money. And me and the JavaScript developer I was showing you put this together. We quickly realized that we can't do the D3 stuff we need without straight up custom D3. We actually built a bi-directional tree. This is pretty cool stuff. It was hard, but we got there. And they're now using this across the company in Denmark. And we were able to deliver a proof of concept in about a month, working part-time on this, just me and him. So now we're refining and improving it, of course, but they were really happy and they renewed the contract and they continue to be really happy. So just some final considerations. Some data visualization efforts obviously require more customization than Plotly and R charts can provide. So that's when maybe you have to go the D3 route. So we still leverage Plotly and R charts, which I would say is 80% of my work. I don't always need custom D3. And use the right tool for the job. Some of the benefits is, I think someone else mentioned this, you have the analysis and the presentation layer all in R. So as data scientists, that's probably where we do most of our work. You can publish the results right to the web. Efficiency, like you saw, I think it's less coding, less time spent. And we proved it with a little experiment. It was half the development time. It also empowers data scientists. So like I said, I was so jealous about the D3 JS skills and all of the web developers. I never considered myself a developer, but now it's forcing me to actually learn a little bit more about it all. And I'm able to build these dashboards. And I always thought that my data analysis was just sitting on a shelf and collecting dust. And now we can put it out there. And that's really cool and really powerful. We need to use it as much as we can to convey our ideas. And prototyping. So this is a big thing I do with a lot of my clients is prototype solutions quicker, especially if they're data products. Because the client never knows what they want right away. And that's not their fault, they're human. But once they see the data and they can interact with it, they start to come up with ideas they didn't even realize until they were able to see it come alive. They say, oh, maybe we do need to add a minimum threshold filter. And I didn't know that we'd have to correct for population because these results will be so skewed. And so then you refine your requirements before sending them to the dev team for a full build. So you're saving a lot of money and time on dev cycles that are just unnecessary. Plus, they're really impressed when they see a full-blown working application in a few weeks. And that's what gives me confidence. I'm a sole proprietor. It's one reason I wasn't able to attend this entire conference. Shameless plug, I am hiring for contract work. So I got to make it to half of today, which was great. And I'm really fortunate to be speaking with such smart and talented people. I really just leverage all the cool stuff they build. And this is Brophy Analytics. He's the one that helped me with all the JavaScript stuff, and I partner with them. So I wanted to give him a shout out for, again, doing free work. All right, thank you. Questions? All right, I must have been very clear and concise then. I know it was quick. One thing I didn't mention is I did also use Flex Dashboard, and this was also another reason for me to use something new that I've been wanting to, so thank you guys for having me.